Hey guys, it's episode 13. I understand.
For reals this time.
Yeah, it's episode 13. I got it right. I actually wrote it here in my show notes. We're 13 episodes in, and I still feel like it's new to us, and we're still learning how to do things, including talking on the mic, which we'll get to in a minute. But hey, today we've got a fun episode today. We're going to talk about what we've learned in our first, we'll be generous, 30 years.
I'll take it.
Kristen's older than me, so.
Liar.
I'm just kidding. I'm the old guy. Anyways, we got this and a lot more on the next episode of the 911 Strong podcast.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey guys, we're back. Welcome back to the 911 Strong podcast. Today, we're going to talk about stuff we've learned in our first 30 years. Stuff that existed back then that doesn't exist today. And conversely, things that exist today that may have been an advantage to us back then. But before we start, we're going to talk about Kristen's little train class experience that she had.
Yes. So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's about 5150s. And
Yes.
then we'll segue into your 5150 experience over at Disneyland.
Oh, sounds good. Okay, so it was at Golden West College, put on by my friend Ryan Dedmond.
Yeah, I love Ryan.
He is such a great guy. And if you didn't know, or if you do go to this class, it's a grant, so it's for free. So all your departments don't have to complain like it's going to cost them money, because It's not going to cost them a dime. It's crisis intervention training for law enforcement. And we went over different, I guess you can say 5150 diagnosis or mental.
And just to clarify, because 5150 is the Welfare Institution Code for California. It's not.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have some people that are actually around the world. 21 countries as of this morning.
Woo-hoo.
So 5150 is our code for the police powers to take someone in for a 72-hour mental evaluation. If they meet the criteria where they're a danger to themselves or others, or they're gravely disabled, we will put them in a mental housing facility for monitoring and evaluation for up to 72 hours. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So it touched on that, and it just touched on some different diagnoses like schizophrenia and bipolar, depression, anxiety, stuff like that, and just basically how to kind of reset your mind frame as to how you see them and how you view them and how you talk to them, because at the bottom of it, that's, they were born with it. At some point in time, it kicks in, and they're stuck with it to some extent. And
Yeah, there's a trigger, right?
Yeah, there's a trigger that'll set it off. Most of the times, for schizophrenia and bipolar, it doesn't kick in until adulthood. Sometimes it can hit in your teenage phase, but and then they can get help. But obviously, it kind of just reframes your mind, like how you see transients or homeless people when you see them on the street. What immediately comes to mind, and a lot of us say they're alcoholics, they're druggies, all that stuff, which partially could be true, but that's not exactly how they got there right away in the first place. So just that kind of stuff, and we went over it. It was a really good class, and it's very a safe space to talk about our own experiences and what we've gone through and what we may or may not be suffering from, and it was really good.
And this is a class that's geared towards dispatchers.
It's geared towards dispatchers. I'd have to ask him if they do this class outside of California, but it is post-approved.
Okay.
For us Californians, that's what we need for our departments to be happy with us. So
Sounds like a very worthwhile class. If you want some more information about that, you can message us at the 911 Strong podcast. You can message Kristen on email at Kristen, with an E, Kristen, at 911strong.com, or Aram, Aram, as in Mike, at 911strong.com. Those are our emails. We pay a lot of money for them, and we don't get any emails, so email us. But yeah, speaking of 5150s, you were at Disneyland. You had a getaway day with your oldest daughter yesterday.
I did.
And you had a little trouble in trying to get in, right?
I did, for the first time ever. And I've been going to Disneyland for years.
Right.
And they have this little baggage check-in area. And then after that, they hold your bags and you go through a metal detector. So I went through the metal detector like I always have. And then this lady says that it went off. But you can hear the beep if it does. It didn't go off. which should have been my first, like, okay, well, whatever.
Right. This isn't our first time in Disneyland.
Yeah, this isn't my first rodeo, but okay, fine, whatever. So I raised my arms up, but not good enough for her. And she's like, no, it needs to be up like an airplane. I'm like, okay, fine. Complete 90-degree angle. Fine, whatever. And then, so she does her whole wand thing, and then she takes her wand and she starts pointing at my shirt. Well, I'm wearing a Pulp Fiction shirt with Uma Thurman on it. And she's like pointing at it. She's like, what is this? I'm like, what? What do you mean?
How old was she? Was she older?
Yeah, she was, I mean, I know she was older than me.
Okay. So she was definitely around when Pulp Fiction came out.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, maybe she didn't see it. Maybe, I don't know. But whatever. I mean, but it's not like a risque like picture or anything like that. It's just her like laying, like, I guess laying on her chest with her heels in the air. But
Right.
it's not a risque one looking at all. And I'm like, oh, it's Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction. It's a culture classic movie. And she's like, well, what is it? Is she some rock star or something? I'm like, no, actually, she's a mafia wife. And unfortunately, she overdoses in the movie, but that's just part of the movie, the scene.
Right.
And then she like shakes her head and gives me a dirty look. And she's like, well, I wouldn't wear something like that. I would never represent something like that. And she's like, that is seriously being a bad influence. And my daughter's standing right there. And I'm like, okay, just take a deep breath and just keep walking. I was partially in shock. The old me probably would have said some colorful words to her. I should have probably told her, like, one, I didn't ask for your opinion. Yeah. And two, I'm so sorry that you're that judgmental. Right. And three, what's your name? Because I'm going to City Hall.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, like, we were talking about that afterwards because you were venting.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about bad character influences in movies, the Disney movies are full of them. Yes. Everyone has a villain.
Not only everyone has a villain. Like I can give you that. Like everybody has a villain in their life. Right. But just about every Disney movie and every ride at Disneyland, somebody gets murdered in it. Yeah. So let's not get technical about this stuff. Like, Bambi's mom gets shot within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was shocking to me. And that was back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I cried when I was a kid. Right. Yeah. And then, we're riding on, throughout the rest of the day, me and my daughter were just kind of picking at things, just making fun of the whole situation. And yeah, we go on the Snow White ride, and all of a sudden you see all the dwarves up on this cliff, and there goes the witch off the side of the cliff. Yeah. But that death wasn't good enough. They decided to drop a rock on her just in case. Yeah.
Well, that's. I'm sorry you went through that because we grew up when Disneyland was. So I sang in high school choir, and we used to sing annually at Disneyland. And a lot of high schools did that.
You were a soprano, weren't you?
What do you mean a soprano? That kind of soprano? That was my mafia. Anyway,
no, stick to Chewbacca.
I do a better Chewbacca. Yes. I just can't do that right now. Let me try again.
Okay, better.
But they used to take you in the backstage, back lot, and they would always say you can't take pictures. They prided themselves basically on the cleanliness and their customer service. Mm-hmm. And you know how everybody makes fun of Chick-fil-A with the whole My Pleasure thing, and they're over and beyond. That's how Disneyland used to be. Yes. And I've seen a steady decline in customer service when it comes to Disneyland. Yeah. Everybody used to have a smile to make sure you had a magical day, and that's gone now. I have no idea if it's because the personnel that's available to them now. Maybe this generation just doesn't have that in them, which...
Well, and to be fair, I can't even really blame this generation because she's older than you and I.
Yeah, you're right. So
I think she was just but
I don't know if she would. I don't know if she would have been hired back when the standards were much higher in the 80s and stuff. So, which led me to today's topic: what we've learned in the first 30 years. And I would say that culture had shifted. And I don't mean to sound like my parents when they said I don't understand this generation, because my parents were hippies, so they didn't. People didn't understand their generation. Like my grandparents shook their head at the fact that my dad wanted to grow long hair or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I want to sound this out on the podcast because I want to make sure we're not our parents.
I'm not my parents.
Well, are we being too... Yeah, you're not. But are we being too judgmental? And one of the first things, I broke it down in my elementary, junior high years as opposed to high school, because for whatever reason, I feel like high school we did a tremendous amount of growth in those 4 years as opposed to the years leading up to that. But I remember having national pride. Sam the Olympic Eagle came to my elementary school in 84 when the Olympics were here in the United States. It was a big deal. It was actually here in LA. So Sam the Olympic Eagle, who was the mascot back then, came to all the schools, and we had the big event where we all marched around. When they do the introductions of all the countries and they walk around the track, we did our own, but by class.
Gosh, how cute!
But you know what that did? That was still when we sang did the Pledge of Allegiance, and we sang a song, a national song, like a pride song afterwards.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Kids are getting in trouble now, or classes are getting in trouble now for wanting to do the Pledge of Allegiance. As a matter of fact, I took a screenshot this morning of something that happened in Bozeman, Montana. So students at Bozeman High School in Montana are protesting a Christian club because they don't like the group's biblical beliefs about marriage and sexuality. So the other student groups, I guess there's like a student council, they voted to not recognize the Christian Bible group at school, which a lot of schools have, as an official campus group. So
That's terrible.
Yeah, so they can't get the benefits of utilizing a classroom or using the school's audiovisual equipment. Mm-hmm. And it's just such an extreme. I understand, okay, you may not agree with the views. Yeah. But why not just agree to disagree instead of shutting them down altogether?
Yeah. Well, because they're threatened by it.
Okay.
I think. I mean, it's just like it cracks me up because those groups of people are so for freedom of speech and acceptance and love. Right. And unless it's Christian, then forget about it.
Yeah. Do you think it's just because for so long they were censured, and this is sort of retribution and payback for them?
Probably. It's probably vindictive to some extent. But then again, the kids that are doing this, they weren't any part of that. Right. Like now that they make their own decisions, I mean, people coming out of the closet's been going on. So sorry, you're not new to that anymore.
Yeah. I think it's a little weird, but that segues into the next topic. Was I felt like we had a lot more respect for other people and their beliefs back then. And I grew up in the 70s, and that was only, 10 years removed from segregation, 20 years removed from segregation and stuff. And, my family was immigrated from Korea with my grandfather. Mm-hmm. He was in the Korean Navy, and when he became American, he decided he wanted to join the military here, and he joined the Army. So there was a tremendous amount of national American pride because we had two generations of the military in my family, U.S. military. My dad was in the Army as well, but we all never abandoned our cultural pride, that Korean pride. Yeah. So what's funny was 1984, we had LA hosted the Olympics. Mm-hmm. 4 years later, in 1988, where was it hosted? Seoul, Korea.
Oh, okay.
That's my family's.
I'm still a little too young.
Yeah, that was my family's heritage. And so I remember we had a tremendous, in terms of expressing national pride and heritage pride, those 4 years was crazy because I saw a tremendous amount of United States national pride. Mm-hmm. And then I saw a tremendous amount of Korean national pride because it was hosted in Korea for the first time. And they built all this tremendous amount of infrastructure. And you've got to remember, it was just 20 years post, was it 20 years? 88. So 38 years past the Korean War. Mm-hmm. And the Korean big towns and stuff were just third world villages. But, now they have Samsung and LG and Hyundai and Kia and all this stuff. And to see all this growth from what that triggered out of the Olympics, because the Olympics brought in a bunch of economy and awareness of where Korea was, that even to this day, I'm still proud to see Korean accomplishments and stuff. The runner-up for the Cy Young this year was a Dodger pitcher named Hyunjin Ryu. He's a Korean pitcher. Mm-hmm. And, there's a handful of Korean players in the MLB, but you want them to do well. Yeah. And it's not that I'm anti-American. Right. It's not. But when I talk about that kind of pride, people tell me, oh, dude, you're not American. I'm like, no, I think that defines Americanism. We all
we're
came
a melting
from,
pot.
Yeah, we all came from somewhere.
Yes.
But I don't know. But back then, there was a lot more respect for that. I remember people during the Olympics that if their country wasn't in it, they rooted for Korea, and they used to come to our house and have these viewing parties and stuff around our little Sony Trinitron TV. That thing was a beast. A little 25-inch TV. I remember that being the biggest deal. We had a 25-inch Sony Trinitron. But now people have 80-inch TVs in their homes.
Yeah, they're insane now.
But that goes to the respect thing. We had a lot more. We were taught to have respect for our elders, and then on top of that, respect for our friends' parents. I remember whenever I told my parents I was going over to my friends' houses, it wasn't like, "Hey, be kind, share their toys. It was, you better be nice to their parents. Because I think my parents felt like I was a direct reflection on them.
And you would address them by Mr. or Mrs. You wouldn't use their first name basis either.
Well,
initially, I think it changed probably around the late 90s, but
yeah. So I remember like one of my best friends growing up, John Welch. They're from Texas originally, and her name was Patty. And I'm like, Mrs. Welch, Mrs. Welch, Mrs. Welch. And she's like, Aaron, you better stop calling me Mrs. Welch. I'm Patty. And I'm like, my mom will kick my butt if I call you by your first name.
Yeah.
And and it was true.
Yeah.
So,
but those I think were the more like forward thinking people, and I think to that extent, it's just more like it builds more of like a friendship, camaraderie, family atmosphere when you take that away. It's not as formal.
And then there's other families like Ben. When I came over there, he had so many brothers that were my friends too, and they just called her mom. Mrs. Lowry was mom. Yeah, we just called her mom. Yeah, and she loved that, I think, because she never corrected us one bit. Yeah. So I think the culture, the respect thing was different back then. We were taught differently. We were taught to respect our elders, and not just that, but we represented our parents' influence on us when we respected other parents.
You're an extension of them.
Yeah, but I fooled them, I think, because according to my friend's parents, I was an angel, right?
Your parents knew better?
Yeah, my parents knew better. And it was vice versa. I think I talked about it before. One of my mom's favorite friends of mine was Ben, and they had a very fun relationship with each other. And I think to this day, Ben's fondness for like real Korean food, not just stuff that you see like Korean tacos here and there. Yeah. No, he gets down and eats the stuff that like I shy away from. Yeah. And it's because of that, to this day we talk about that with my mom. But what do you think? What are some of the differences that you've noticed as how you were growing up as opposed to how kids grow up today?
How the change with kids are?
Yeah, I think right before we came in, we talked about how the social media was present now, and it wasn't when we were growing up.
Well, yeah, obviously when we were growing up, we went outside and played in the front yard or down the block or, a few blocks away. And now I wouldn't let my kids play out front like at all. And they're not really playing with their friends outside either. One, because the kids that do live in our immediate area, they're playing sports. One kid, he's like a little Hollywood actor, so he's always in LA. The other little girl, she does sports, like I said, so she's always gone. And she goes to school outside of our city. Our kids go to school outside of the city. So all their friends are at least 20 miles away, so they can't have that all the time. So their playing is online.
Is it a safety concern too, though? The reason why we don't want our kids playing outside? Yeah. Or do you think?
Well, it's a safety concern on top of I don't trust my child's decisions as well. Like, let's be real. Sophia's crazy, and she'll probably run across the street barefoot and not watch for cars.
Right. Well, I was going to say, do you think it's just us being worried as parents? Because my parents weren't like that. I told them I was going to be gone. I'd ride my bike, and I'd be back at dark. Yeah. And if I wasn't, I remember excuse you. Sorry. My friend George lived 2 blocks away, and from our porch, I could hear my mom yell, "Aram!" And George's mom would say, "Aram, Jauregui." They're Polish. "Your mom is screaming like crazy." Okay. She's a crazy person. And that's how I knew I had to go home. But I don't know if they were more trusting or if it was safer back then.
I don't know. Well, because my dad's very protective. Yeah. But growing up, when it came to playing, and he worked in the same city that we grew up in. Right. But he let us go. So I would ride blocks away. Actually, I would go to the nearest park by our house, and that was overrun by gang members and stuff.
So I would say that maybe the world's just more dangerous today.
Probably, or maybe people are just more blatant. Like even the criminals back then, I think, had a different understanding of what would happen to them. I feel like
punishment has reduced
punishment's
tremendously.
Really like a slap on the wrist in California now.
Yeah.
So
we joked about that the other day with meth. We were at a wedding where there was a bunch of out-of-state cops that were there, and they were talking about how methamphetamine's still a felony out there. And how out here it's a citation. Yeah,
no big deal. You want some meth? Go for it.
So, you're right.
Here's a piece of paper.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I think we're more aware now with how fast we can get information on our cell phones and just logging on the internet. Even shows that came out like To Catch a Predator and stuff like that. I think we're just more aware of what's out there. Yeah. And where I think we were lucky because our parents didn't know any of that stuff. Yeah. They're like, oh, no, hey, there's a weird van down the street, but go play it over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my dad told me to he would never tell me about stuff that happened at work, but just to be mindful of everything that's going on.
Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, he knew how ugly it could be, but yeah, he still let us go out. But any place that we went, if it was a friend's house, he was sure to have their phone numbers and then they would call. So I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think, speaking of kids, I don't think I talked about The Wonder Years with you. That was my favorite TV show.
No, you didn't.
So my favorite TV show growing up was The Wonder Years. I think you can still get it on Netflix. And I think it was like 7 seasons long.
It was good.
Yeah. It was just like, how I grew up, I felt like. As a matter of fact, I was such a fan of the show, I went over to Glendale. My friend Ben again, he was dating a girl that lived next door to the house that was depicted as the Arnold house.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
So we used to go over there and take pictures in front of it and whatnot. But I felt like the friendships and the relationships that were depicted in that show, I think it was supposed to be the 60s, late 70s. Yeah, it was. That was a generation away from my generation, but it didn't really feel different. I could relate to that growing up in the 80s and early 90s. Yeah. And I think somewhere when the millennium happened, the 2000 era, man, there's such a huge drastic change between the students now and students when I was growing up. As a matter of fact, we were just talking about TikTok. I'm on TikTok now. I see a lot of videos of kids interacting with their teachers, and they call them by their first names. Yeah, some of them do. It's like, and I would get my butt kicked if I did that.
I think it just I'm trying to think now if, I know my younger two, everybody, they're addressed with Mrs.
But you go to your kids go to a Christian private school. Yeah.
But Chase, I don't think that they do. I think she does address everybody with Mr. or Mrs., but they do have a very friendly atmosphere. Yeah. And they all joke around about things or whatever. But none of it to me sounds inappropriate. I'd rather have a teacher that kind of relates to the kids and actually cares about their job instead of the ones that are more like little Hitlers running around that doesn't bend any of the rules or listens to the kids.
No offense to any of the Nazis that listen. We do have German audience members. No. we do. It's funny. I got to look at the countries again, but one of them was Pakistan. I thought that was
really
weird. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. We've got 21 countries that listen to us now, and the majority of them come from the United States, Canada, and the UK. Yeah. So obviously English-speaking nations. Oh, Australia came in really close to the UK. But some of these other countries were just like beyond, like Pakistan. There were some African countries. I was like, wow,
that's cool.
Maybe they downloaded us on accident.
Maybe. You never know. Maybe they thought it was something else, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So some of the things that I enjoyed about high school looking back was I felt like that was a lot of when I did my most growing up. Mm-hmm. I played sports, so I learned the value of teamwork. But one of the things I thought was cool back then that is different today is dating. Uh-huh. So when you dated people in high school, you were kind of relegated to the people in your high school.
Yes.
Right? So your choices were just there.
It was limited.
I guess. I went to a big high school. But
it was pretty big. It was decent.
But people paid attention. I remember passing notes and stuff like that. And
oh my gosh, yeah. They don't do notes anymore.
No, because why?
Because
No, because they have these things.
Oh, because they're phones, yeah.
But this thing also opens them up to everybody. So you hear a lot of high school relationships today that aren't even in the same state. Yeah. I met somebody on Snapchat, and he lives in South Dakota, and we're going to have kids.
Long-distance relationships always work out. Yeah.
So I guess in a way it's good that they're broadening their
gosh.
I don't know, their search area.
Stick to your hometown when you're a little kid.
Right, but I'm going back to the Wonder Years. I thought that was cool. Like, you had relationships with people that had common interests in your neighborhood and your geographic territory, and I don't know. I thought those kind of relationships were cute, and if I ever envisioned my kids being in relationships, it was going to be with someone that's from the neighborhood. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm dreaming. But I think that's gone now. Those days are over.
Maybe not. My daughter likes them closer because it's less gas expenditure.
Yeah. See, that's another thing. When you're paying for your own gas.
Yeah. When you have to start spending your own money, you start paying attention.
You want to hear the irony in all this, though? How I grew up and You
met somebody online?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Liz and I met on the internet.
And I met somebody from my hometown.
Yeah. Weird, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, I don't know. What do you think some of the big changes will be when we're grandparents?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, obviously social media is still going to be prevalent. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be like kind of like I'm going back to my Star Wars thing, but you know how like they have the 3D thing and that's how they're talking with each other? Maybe it'll be like that. It'll be a little bit more, I don't know, realistic.
Do you think people will grow up? Because I feel like kids, especially being exposed to TikTok now, which is all kids, they're growing up so much faster. And I think as technology expands.
Yeah. Well, I think the kids that are on that TikTok generation, they're going to be a lot more comfortable with being themselves, I think, because they're starting off so young that they don't know any better to like second guess what they're doing.
Right.
Like Sophia acts like a fool on that thing.
Right.
And but
the more
she's
likes,
so comfortable.
Yeah. And because she's encouraged too. She's getting followers and people are liking her. We're talking about her 7-year-old daughter here who's TikTok famous.
Yes.
And I follow her. I'm a big fan. My dream is to be on a video with her one day.
She's crazy. She really is. But I mean, if they're starting that young, they don't know any better. They're still so innocent that they're not embarrassed to be who they are.
So keep encouraging her, because yesterday I had a phone meeting with my agent. I have an agent that handles my activities on social media. And
not that you don't really respond to everybody, because you do.
Just
to clarify that.
No, I handle my own social media.
You're personally responding to people.
But I have an agent that handles my...
like the back end of it.
Yeah, so like on Facebook, I'm monetized. And so I have a management company that deals with advertising and all that stuff. But no, it's me that posts videos. Yes,
I just want to make sure everybody knows that it really is him.
Yeah, but Justin was telling me how... he's good friends with the person that's handling marketing and possibly monetization of TikTok. So Instagram's not monetized. A lot of people think people make money on Instagram. We don't.
They don't, yeah.
We benefit in other ways on Instagram by like getting free things for advertising, exchange, stuff like that, and exposure, obviously. But TikTok is going to be... They're talking about monetizing TikTok. So TikTok's still relatively new, guys. I mean, don't be discouraged by people that have millions of followers on TikTok. Because, it just takes one video. Right?
Gary Vee is a full-on supporter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gary Vee, that's enough. I love his motive. I just don't agree with everything he says. I know, and I'm going to upset a lot of people because I have a lot of friends that love Gary Vee. They worship him. But I call BS on a lot of things.
Some of it.
I saw a clip that he said in the 4 years he was in high school, he did not do one homework assignment. Come on.
Yeah.
He had to do one.
Well, unless he had access to the teacher's computer.
Well, probably. But what kind of message?
Or he had somebody do that for him. No, I know. That doesn't sound like a good
and I don't like the message.
Send.
Yeah, and he's out there talking in front of kids, being the cool guy because he cusses. And it's like, he's an extreme fluke. His successes came, no doubt he works hard, but there's a lot of people that work hard that don't make it.
Yes.
And I don't think it's because... The missing link was the fact that they did homework in high school, or that they censor their, no. So be careful with some of these idols that you have out there. And if you're going to be in a position to be an example to others, you got to understand that your way may not work for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
If Gary Vee's listening, because he might, because we're his competition. We were his competition for 3 days. He was ranked 135 in the nation. And we were right behind him at 136, and that lasted just a few days. I think we've dropped down a lot, but
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we covered some good topics about our first 30 years and what we can expect in the next 30 years. I think we're gonna have to revisit this one day. It'll be interesting because what I typically do after these podcast recordings is I think about what we've talked about and I come up with stuff I wish we would have said.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm going to jot them down here. But and I think our audience members, if they listen, they can add on to this. Hit us up on social media, message us, send us an email or DM, and we'll bring you up or your comments when we revisit this episode.
Follow it up. Yeah. Because you can go on forever.
You can, and I don't want to go on a rant because I didn't cover half these notes that I wrote here, but we can even break it down just by we covered a lot in my junior high thing and a couple things in high school that I wanted to bring up we didn't. But I think just a future cast, I guess. I felt like I did a lot of my personality and character molding in high school.
I think mine was some in high school, but I was still figuring out a lot of who I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on sports. I did play sports. I played volleyball. I did choir. I did theater. But I think I really grew up because I think I was so, my school was pretty, I don't know. I would say it was pretty sheltered for the most part.
Really?
I mean, we had alcohol and there was like a little bit of drugs, but nothing like crazy.
Right.
And it was a change from where I grew up from, which was, there's gang members and drugs and everything all over the place.
Right.
And then
what was your gang name? Didn't they have a gang name for you?
I don't know. I'd probably be like, well, Danny goofs around that because my name is Weta to his family members. Yeah. So yeah, they're like little Weta.
What's a Weta for people that don't understand?
White girl. My
right.
mother-in-law cannot say Kristen.
Right.
And so he just called me Weta.
Right.
And she's like, oh, are you sure? Because to them, it can be derogatory.
Right. It's slang.
But for me, I'm like, I don't care. I have a thick skin. I'm like, yeah, call me whatever. So they call me Weta or Tia Weta or Wetita, which means little white girl. So
how funny.
Yeah.
We should change our podcast name to the 911 Strong Podcast with Weta and Chino. Reach out to a whole new audience.
Yeah. So, but I think I did a lot of my growing up when I got hired at the police department because I was still a baby and I was so oblivious to the world.
Yeah. We should have some of your old neighborhood friends come up as guests on the podcast. I can imagine. So what was Kristen like as a kid?
Oh my gosh, Weta was super cool, eh? She, I remember she used to take her BMX bike and launch herself on the ramps.
Oh my God, I was so bad. I would, because my dad, bless his soul, thought that, sports were more for boys. So my brother was always playing. So I was at the park and I was chilling with the homies and getting to know them. And I had my dad's big old oversized flannel on and big old jeans. And then, at the time, oh my gosh, so embarrassing. I would outline the outside of my lips really dark.
That was in, yeah.
Oh, I looked horrible.
You probably had like
I didn't have any
Looney
real friends
Tunes
to slap
character
me.
somewhere airbrushed on something.
Yes, Looney Tunes or Stussy.
Oh gosh. How funny.
Yeah, good times. Yeah.
Man. That was so prevalent too in my high school. I mean, if you grew up in LA County, your high school is probably very similar to what we were talking about.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
All right. Well, cool. Before we get in trouble with the Mexican mafia or something, we should probably end things. All right. Any announcements?
I see that we're running a little low on our rugged meats. Have you been mentioning on those?
I have. They're so good. People know that this is not a prop. If you're listening on the radio, I'm referring to our rugged meats container that the rugged meats people were nice enough to send us. But I actually go through these. They included a new flavor this time, barbecue. Mm-hmm. And that's if you look through them, all the barbecue's gone.
I noticed they're all gone. But
they're so good.
My favorite's still the jalapeno.
No, that's my
barbecue was good, but jalapeno
favorite,
still is.
It's a tie for me between sriracha and jalapeno.
Yeah,
but
some good stuff.
Yeah,
but we took some to Disneyland yesterday.
Oh yeah, some of our guests were wondering how they can get rugged meats, and it's real simple. It's ruggedmeats.com, and you can actually save by using code 911 strong. So go ahead and do that. You won't regret it. They look like Slim Jims, but they're not.
First responder family.
Absolutely. And they're not a huge conglomerate business. You're supporting a family that runs this business out of their house. So.
Oh, and they're donating, right, to not veterans, to the guys overseas currently.
Yeah. So, you know that movie, The Lone Survivor? Mm-hmm. Man, what?
Sorry, guys, I'm extending it, but that's what you wanted for your drive, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking Chris Kyle, but that was someone else. Anyways, man, this is embarrassing because.
Oh, I never stump you. This is good. I suck at names, guys, so I always rely on Aram, and now he's failing me. Hold on.
I'm Googling. Okay, so Lone Survivor is about Marcus Luttrell. So Marcus Luttrell and Melanie Luttrell, they live in Texas. And they have an organization where they provide sustenance and just everyday things that the commissary doesn't give to our troops out there.
Yeah.
And they reached out and said, "Hey, if you know any businesses or anything that want to support," And the first company I thought of was Rugged Meats, and they responded right away. So
That's so cool.
Yeah, they're a bunch of those sailors and soldiers and Marines are going to get a bunch of Rugged Meats in their packages for. I think they're going to get a package for Thanksgiving and a package for Christmas.
That's awesome.
So Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell. It's on Netflix and Amazon. An amazing book, and Marcus Luttrell and Melanie Luttrell, they have a huge following because not just because of the movie and the book, but because of what they do for the service community.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry I forgot your name. I'm sorry I remembered Chris Kyle's before yours, but that was a good movie too. Anyway, that's
So
it.
first responder business, doing good things for all of our guys across the seas. So
Yeah, and they don't pay us, guys. They hand us.
they pay us in meat, and we're very thankful.
They do give us our Rugged Meats, and we appreciate that, but they don't pay us. We support businesses that we would be customers for. So, yeah. With that said, hey, thank you guys for inviting us into your homes, your offices, and on your drive. And I have to mention, if I sound louder today, it's because I'm closer to the mic. One of our listeners messaged me and said, "I think your podcast is great. Kristen sounds like a pro, but you sound like you're 10 feet from the mic." So I made a concerted effort.
And I have the reasoning for that.
Yeah, you
it's
do.
because you're a cop and I'm a dispatcher.
Right, yeah.
We know how to use mics.
Yes, you do.
And all of us dispatchers know that cops do not.
On the next episode, I'll talk about why we are 10 feet from the mic.
Okay, this should be good.
Yeah.
So you guys will have to turn next week.
Yep. All right, guys. Catch you guys later.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.
You've been listening to the 911 Strong Podcast with Aram and Kristen. You can subscribe to the 911 Strong Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and many other fine podcast platforms. You can also see the in-studio recording on YouTube. Just search 911 Strong. We value your opinion. Please leave us a review, and we would really appreciate a 5-star rating. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell your friends about us.